Recording in progress.
Right. All right. Welcome everyone. Good morning. We hope you're well. And it's very good to see you all again for the fourth week in a row. So this is becoming a nice gathering at the end of every week. As usual, thanks for joining on time. I think we are almost at full class. 3 minutes in. But as usual, just a reminder, we'd like to see you so that we can interact and just see also that you're with us. So if you're able to, please put on your cameras. Today's session is going to be a very interesting one as we've walked the journey of customer obsession. So over 4 weeks, we walked from trust to understanding our customer to mapping their journey. It's also been really nice to see your customer journeys come together this last week. And today, we're walking to the final step of that process, which is this eating the frogs. Now, the session today will start a little differently from how we've done it the last few. We're going to start with what we call a priming exercise. Now, before we open up and do the pulse, there's a link that will be shared, and we'd like you to just do a short reflection. So that's going to take up the first 15 to 20 minutes. You're going to read something, and then you're going to do a starting reflection. We'd like to see how you're coming into the room. I know you've done a lot of drawing and meeting over the last week, but we want you to just start by doing this short reflection. So I think the team can put up the link to that. There you go. So just click that And for the first 10, 15 minutes, we just want you to engage on that. And we'll put back up the music. We've all been able to see the link? Good. Okay. Sorry, Pauline. Yes, Pauline?
Hi,
You had your hand up.
Yes,
Morning.
sorry, I hadn't seen. Morning. I hadn't seen the link, but I've seen it now. I've seen it in the chat.
All right, no worries. For anyone who's joined now, just click the link and there's a short reflection we want you to do even coming into the session. And then in 10 or so minutes, we'll come back into the room. All right, I see some people have joined now. So you just click the link that's on the chat. I think we can reshare it for you. And there's a short reflection coming into the session today. So let me know if you are having any trouble. We can help. All right, we have about 3 more minutes. Has everyone been able to submit their reflection? Just put a thumbs up in case you've done it. Okay, I can see some coming in. You just click the link and then you can submit what reflections. All right. Sorry, Kiriri. Let's just pause the music. Okay. Morning, everyone. Again, what we wanted to do is just ensure that you have a bit of framing coming into the session. So today we're going to be talking about eating the frogs. And when we think about the journey that we've been walking, from drawing out your customer journey, finding the frogs that exist along that journey, that's the opportunities for things we can solve. One of the questions we asked you, even in the last reflection, was what are those things and which ones do you think you can eat today? Which frogs do you think you can eat? So through the session today, we are going to explore what that process looks like, because this is the point of the journey where you're actually rowing individually and together as a team. Now, before we start out with eating the frogs, and I've seen some submissions come in. If you've not been able to just hit send, please go ahead and do that. We're gonna, as usual, start off with a pulse. So today's pulse question, I know the weather is quite gray. I can see, Gerald, you're really bundled up. Today's pulse question is on a scale of 1 to 5, how you're doing. And if your energy is not at a 5, what would it take to put you at a 5 today? Gerald, now that I've picked on you, you can start and tell us your pulse.
Thank you so much. I think I am at 4, I will say. The one that is missing is probably owing to the weather. I think some hot coffee. But generally, I've had a nice productive week, and I was looking forward to this session today.
Yes, okay. So are you in between coffee, or it's coming to that's what to take your pulse to a 5?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Thanks, Gerald. Let me pick one more person. Victor of User Point, how are you today?
I am doing okay. I'll give myself 5. I think also the weather. Just already up with my sweater. I'll take coffee also.
Yeah. Okay. What would it take? You're already at a 5.
Yeah.
Okay. What keeps you at a 5 coming into next week?
Okay. I think one of the reasons I'm at a 5 is we really had a good month in terms of performance at User Point, and also had, like I told Femi on the call, I think some of the teachings and lessons that we've been learning have actually been helpful, because I had dedicated the month of February to just visiting the customers. So it made my work more easier, more fun, and I always try, and as much as I'm not as good as Ken and Koi will do, just to try to pass the lessons to my team, because I would want us to be on the same level instead of just me being there. So I think the same amount of performance and efforts from work, and yeah, I'll be at 5. And maybe if the weather changes next week, just for us.
Some fun. It wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Victor. Thanks for joining.
Thank
I'll pick Mercy of Tendepe. How are you doing? Where's your pulse today?
Hi, morning. My pulse is at 4.5. The week was very busy, but I'm glad. I was struggling with multitasking and I'm aligning. So I can say the week is ending very well for me.
Okay. All right. So you're having a good end to the week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mercy. Let's hear one more. Frida of Tanj, how are you doing? Where's your pulse?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I am at 3 because I've been in and out of hospital for the past few weeks. And also the past, like Monday, Tuesday of this week. And striking a balance has been a bit tricky. But I'm generally doing well and okay at work. Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Glad you're feeling better. And thanks for joining as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think general pulse in the room. I know the cold is beating all of us, but I think the general pulse is good. Let me ask the community team. Ken and Koi, where is your pulse today?
Good morning, everyone. Frida, we wish you a quick recovery. May hospitals be a thing of the past. I'm at a 4 out of 5. I have my coffee here, which I've been sipping and listening, and I always look forward to this session. So happy to see everyone. 4. And you can.
Yeah, I'm at 4.7. With the team, I was at 4.65. Now 4.7. Always very nice when we find some areas where we can add value to an entrepreneur's life. So coming into this call is always very high energy for me. So when I hear Abu's story, yesterday we had a call with the Destra team. It's such a joy, those things to hear. So very high energy despite the weather.
Nice. Thanks, Ken. There's now a bit of FOMO. But we are going to make sure that we unpack what we talked about yesterday as well. But yeah, it's such a joy to be in the room again. If we've not asked you directly your pulse, please just put it in the chat. It's still important that we know how the room is faring. So just put your number out of 5 on the chat. So we can see where you are. Okay. Nice. Okay. Pretty high energy. So as usual, we like to start these sessions with a recap from last week. And there's a story that we shared. Sorry. There's a story that we shared that really was the anchor of the session last week. And I want to know if anyone in the room can remember it enough to retell it to me. Who remembers it with clarity to retell it to me today? The story, the guiding story from last week. If you're able to, you just unmute and then you tell us. Giving everyone a chance before now I pick. All right. Okay, let me pick. Faith from Desra. Do you remember the story from last week? And what we talked about?
Good
Morning.
Last week, no, I can't really recall it with clarity. I only recall the Dio one, which was the other. Kenna?
Sorry, Faith, it's breaking a little.
Did you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, say that again.
Good morning, everyone, once again. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes,
that's better. It's okay. I was saying,
Yes.
can't really recall with clarity the last one, but I recall the Dio one.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Faith. You actually recited it yesterday. Remember, we walked through it, but let me allow someone to remind you as well. I saw a hand go up. Liz of CK & Co. Had your hand gone up? Or it was by mistake? Hello. Okay. Liz, are you able to share the story? What did we talk about last week?
Okay, I'm not sure I can remember, but I guess it's the story about the PA for Safaricom, if I'm not wrong. So he stayed and thought, what are they doing? What are they doing? What he's supposed to do? And thought of visiting their customers every town. So he took it as a point of visiting every town, asking them whether they have the SIM card, whether they have the scratch card, and the it's called what? Hiyo ya ku advertise. So I guess if I can remember, that is the story. And so they made a point of making sure that every town or every shop that is selling maybe the SIM cards and whatever, they have those well advertised with the Safaricom color, and they have the SIM card and the scratch card. So I guess maybe someone else who can remember it well can
Yeah. No, thank you, Liz. That's actually the heart of the story. And if you remember, we were thinking about what is the standard of customer obsession? And we painted it through this leader of a business we all admire, which is Safaricom, right? So thank you for reminding us the pointers of that story. I'll ask someone again. When you went away and reflected on that story, what challenged you the most? When you thought of PA and how he was going through picking a route at random every weekend, what challenged you the most? I'll pick Jane of Twiva. What challenged you the most from that story?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think I would say the need for customer obsession, because when we were mapping out the customer journey the second time, we realized there were so many gaps. The fact that we have like two side of customers. We realized there are customers who come on board on the platform, but at the end of the day, they end up feeling deserted. No one is calling them, no one is following up on them. So from that story, I realized that I personally, or how we're going to work with the team, is ensure that we constantly communicate with customers and we constantly see how we can be able to keep letting them know about our value proposition and how we can be able to support them. So for me, it's more of customer obsession and the brand to these customers.
All right. Thanks, Jane. So making sure there's no, missing parts along the way, that someone feels abandoned.
Exactly. Like we are constantly engaging customers in every process, even when we have them on a contract, even when they are out of the contract, we are constantly updating them of maybe what is going on our side on the platform, etc., and also ensuring that we are building that relationship with them. Yeah, so customer obsession came because for someone to actually pick a random route, drive 1,000 kilometers, it means they are very obsessed with the brand and the customers.
All right. Thanks, Jane. I'll ask one more person. Sarah from Tanj. What challenged you about that story?
Good morning. So what challenged me about this story is how the PA, they didn't allow anybody that who came between them and the customer had to go like he was so obsessed with the customer, like he would get rid of every obstacle. Maybe sometimes we give in to some things that we could have gotten away with or done away with or get rid of them. We like allow them to come in between us and the customer as the customer service team, or even as a business, maybe certain habits that we allow them to come in between us and the customer. And if we work on them and get rid of them, maybe that's what makes us not have a good customer journey. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So making sure you stop at nothing to ensure your customer is sorted and cared for throughout the journey. You remove every obstacle. Thanks, Sarah. I think this is a good segue, even as we think about, as we listen to, yes, Ken.
Teacher, I have a question.
Yeah.
you also run a business.
Mm-hmm.
What is the equivalent version of that for you?
Of the journey?
Of the Peterina story. So if you look at that question, what is the equivalent of that behavior for your business?
Okay, good question. I think for us, because you are a customer, so we have two customers, you and your founder. The way in which we pick a route at random and understand what matters the most to them is when we speak to you every week. We also speak to your founders every week to just go along and say, okay, what are you seeing? What's being helpful? What's making a difference along the way? So it's the two touch points that I think at some point every day I'm speaking to our founder, or the team is also speaking to one of you in a different form. So either on WhatsApp, on call, it's an important touch point. That's my equivalent at Comini. So thank you also for indulging us as we are obsessing about you along the way. Okay. So I wanted to highlight this segment where we do rowers of the week and get to hear a bit about what their process of building out the customer journey again, and also highlighting that customer cadence this week has been. And so our rowers of the week by the leaderboard are Team Kinetics. So first, please put the clapping emojis for Team Kinetics. Congratulations to you guys as a team. I'm going to invite Koi to ask you a few questions about how your week has been and what has moved along. So I think the Kinetics representative is Faith.
Yes.
Hi, Faith.
Hi, Faith.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Koi. Hi, Ken. Hi.
Hi.
Congratulations to you, Gerald and Brenda. Are you all on the call?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
We're here. You can see Brenda, Gerald.
All right. Okay. So, please, first question is, how did you leave the call last Friday?
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to my co-rowers, Team Kinetics. Drum rolls. We did it. Anyway, yeah, how I left the call last week. I think to me, the most interesting part is to realize that obsession can actually be a good thing. You know, out here, when you tell someone you're obsessed about me, it comes out as that's a negative thing. But I came to realize that when you're actually obsessed about a customer, when you're obsessed about what your clients want, and you know, everything about a customer, you leave the customer happy. So actually obsession is actually a good thing in this case. So that's how I left the room on Friday. And I would say the exercise prior Friday was more of reactive. You know, we actually need to do this. But after now we got out of the session, we actually sat down as a team and said, I think our exercise last week was more reactive. So can we like now be more intentional in mapping out this journey? So that's how we left the room. Rather, that's how I left the room last week on Friday.
Okay. Thanks, Faith, and thank you for being honest. And previously it was reactive, because I know we asked everyone in this room to remap the customer journey. But I was wondering, what is it in the session that you had that started to change the mindset?
The PA story came in handy because how do you actually visit your customers on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you actually have, you know what you're going to do. It's not like an impromptu courtesy call. So he knew what he wanted. He actually had the results in mind. So this journey is not just an exercise we are doing, like what Ken said on the call. It's something that should have results, attached to it. Because when we do when we work with a customer throughout, we of course expect it to have results at the final end. That is money-wise, we are giving them more customer service, they're giving us more business. So the fact that he was actually so obsessed with their customer that was part of what he was supposed to do. Like he already had results from the exercise he was doing rather. That stood out.
I find it also very fascinating that actually to build a business as big as Safaricom just requires those small steps, and when you see the results, you're like, wow, like all the shops are painted green. There's a reason that this happened, because one rower decided to obsess over the customer. It's always a very powerful story. So you leave Friday, and then you say, okay, let's not be reactive. Let's sit and actually reflect. How was that remapping exercise with both Gerald and Brenda? How did that go?
Okay, so first after the call, we of course planned our week, and then we said on Monday we're going to sit and now remap the journey from the conversations that we've had with clients. So first we had to recall what the client said, first of all, and then we also had to informally sit with, ask clients some informal questions, because then now we couldn't go ahead and request for another call from a client. So we had, like Gerald had an informal conversation with the clients that we were mapping. So we had mapped our journey. I think what we had done previously was just explain how they feel Kinetics as a vendor. That was our previous journey. But now, from what Ken said, it's a step-by-step mapping that where we actually see from when a client hears about Kinetics to when we do business with them and when they actually come back. So when a client comes to us, that was easy to actually, define when a client comes to us, and then when we actually do the actual implementation, that was easy to define because that's what we do. But then now the bottleneck, or rather the frog, was how to define if they actually come back to us, one, willingly, and two, are there bottlenecks to that process? From when we close a project, do clients actually come back to us because we give them the best product, or it's just because they just can't find another person to support the code because the code is from Kinetics, because we do software development. So supporting another developer supporting your code is kind of tricky. So do clients actually come back to us because we are offering value, or it's just because they don't have an option? So that's a frog we are actually trying to figure out even as we talk. Yeah, so that was our process during the mapping.
Okay. Sounds like now you really went in there. Tell me more about these frogs that you uncovered, and possibly one you'd like us to walk you through during this session.
Okay. I think the customer cadence thing really came out. Yes, we had them, but we were not as disciplined enough to follow through them. So, and actually now after we've defined the cadence, we said we are going to do one executive customer call in a month. So the executive customer call involves the CEOs, the high level people, if there are decisions that need to be made, if there are high level projects. And then we've also said we are going to do weekly project technical catch-ups with the client. So that's our cadence. So the frog here is who owns what stage of the cadence and what outcomes do we actually expect? Because it's easy to keep having the weekly technical calls, but we are in silos, we are in cycles. So what results do we actually expect from the technical calls and from the monthly calls, and who owns what? Because I also realized it's easy to say the CEO owns the monthly executive call, but I think, or we rather think, it shouldn't be the case. There should be a ROA somewhere who actually owns that problem and says, from this particular call, this is what we expect. So that's one of the frog. Yes, we've identified the cadence, but who owns what process and what results do we actually expect, so that we can move the project, forward, and so that we can see the results. Another frog is there's something we call a roadmap in software. So where it's more like a project plan. So where you just say, this is what we need to deliver by this time. So actually, most of the times we are off the roadmap. So in the project. So yes, we've defined that part of what that should be discussed in these calls is a roadmap. But then how effective will that call, or rather, what should be discussed around that area that should make us be in line with our roadmap? So that's that is one major frog actually we should eat as team kinetics, roadmap adherence. I think those are the two major frogs we identified. The project cadence, who wants what and what results, and the roadmap adherence. And also the third one, what I said, if clients actually come back to us because we are offering good service or because they just don't have an option. So there's something we call a support contract. So after we've done project closure, how the client comes back to us is signing a support contract. So just we support everything that we've done and make sure that the product is stable. So do they actually, it's actually, I can count 1 in 5 clients that actually willingly signs the contract and says, I think you will actually be delivered. But the other clients, we have to go through, a battle. Emails, meetings, show me the value. Why am I signing this contract? So also, if we actually eat that frog, we are going to have repeated business in kinetics. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for articulating the frog so well. And it's interesting, you're very clear. This is all around cadence. What I'm hearing is, number one, you have this executive cadence that you normally have where you have a call with the CEO. But because of how you are operating and not assigning who owns what, it could be resolved at one point, it could be not resolved at another point. But because it's not a continuous chain, then it doesn't actually impact yourselves, because then you're not too sure whether you delivered or not for the customer. Yeah. And then there's a roadmap where you're saying we actually normally don't meet that roadmap. And there's a cost to that. I'm assuming for your customer, for yourselves actually, in terms of getting paid on time. And it's, what cadence should we be having? How does it look so that we can make sure that we actually meet that roadmap that we give the customer? And that one, I really like the point that you've taken, the insight around, will they come back? And you're saying 1 in 5 sign willingly and say, okay, we are satisfied and we are happy. So you almost have to have gun to head for the others to sign. Even as Ken prepares to sort of, take you through how to think about this, what do you think is the cost? Like, how much is it costing the business by not resolving or not swallowing this frog?
The cost is unimaginable, but I think that I can give in terms of figures. So we have a client that comes to us, client X and X. They give us a contract worth maybe 20 million. And we actually don't meet. We say that we are going to deliver sprint 1 by end of Feb. And the deliverable is that sprint 1. Once that product is up, or there are those we call them modules. When those modules have gone live and they are up, this is when we are going to pay. So as long as we don't see the modules live, as long as our users have not actually been trained on those particular modules, we are not going to pay. So let's say the first bit of it was around 5M. So we actually have to plead with the clients if they are the ones that we were depending on for salaries. If come end of Feb we've not delivered, the modules are not up, so they won't pay. Of course, no client can actually pay without results. So now that becomes an escalation. We have to say, we are going to deliver, we promise, all those conversations. So the impact on the business is majorly money, the cash flow. Because once we hit off a roadmap, as I'm saying, a project, and once a sprint is off delivery, that means we have to work twice as much to deliver 2 sprints at the same time. So 1, the impact is money. 2, and also a stretch on the team that is actually working on that particular project. So they have to work double. We have to work twice to deliver sprint 1 and sprint 2. And if we don't deliver sprint 2 on time, we have to work thrice to deliver both the 3 sprints at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So also that does not do well for energy for the team. Then also your cash flow is struggling to pay. I like how you described what really happens when you don't now really eat this frog. I actually want to ask everyone else, are there any questions for Faith when you listen to her? I can see Jane reflecting. She's even looking up. Jane, what are you thinking?
I'm actually wondering how they are able to convince a client to maybe give them 5 million and they've not delivered the modules. Maybe they need to give us a tip on that. Yeah, because, well, I can relate, because even as when we run a campaign and we've not reported with the client, might not get paid, especially if it's a PO-based kind of contract. So Faith, give us some tips on that. But then again, it means that if you're able to deliver on time, then you can even have these clients committing even more budgets and better kind of relationship. Because if they can pay you when you're begging them even deliver but 350 years and they still do it, then it's such a green flag gesture.
Okay, interesting.
I missed the last part, but I've heard you say you're wondering even how they convince the client to pay the 5 million when they've not even delivered on time. There's some begging, but there'll be compromises, isn't it? But also you're saying that, can you imagine how much value they probably can, if she's saying one signs willingly, that is how many X business that growth. If let's say 4 out of 5 sign willingly this year because they do their cadence as well, that would be how they get the mathematicians. That would be how many times growth?
Yeah, it depends on the mix of the business. Like every business wants recurrent revenue. So if you move your support contracts from 1 in 5 to
4 in 5
to, let's say, even 3 in 5, that's 3 times growth in your recurrent income, right? So the business that even as you start 2027, that business is guaranteed because the contracts are there. That is a very significant impact to the business. It's like you're starting, you're going up the a 5-story building, and when the year starts, you're already at second story, and you only have 3 stories to climb. It's very important. So that's a tripling the recurrent business. That one, your boss will talk about you forever. He'll come to your wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I know there are people who are very yes. Okay. I'm just curious about the people who are in, let's say, like Sawari or Tanj, or because I know that the guys in Tendepe may relate to this. How about Sawari? How about CK and Company Advocates? What are you picking from this story of Faith and Team Desra? I see Liz smiling. Liz, you can just unmute. Who's next to you? You can, maybe they can speak.
Okay, you see, for us here, it's a law firm. So for us, we have to. It's away from like the way they are saying you do the service, then they pay. For us, you pay as we are doing your service. And you see, for us, as we cannot like do marketing or such stuff. So for us, it's like we have to really do the best to our customer so that we get referrals. Because for us, our farm will grow more through referrals and through doing the best to deliver the best to that customer so that they can come back. And as Faith was saying, like they're not coming back because they don't have an option, or maybe because of the charges, and maybe because they think, because I went there last time, maybe this time I'll get a discount. We want them to come back because we delivered the best and because we did our best. And we want them to give us so much referrals because that is how we grow. Yeah.
So in your case, it's even more important to have good cadences to make sure you're doing things on time and as promised, because you cannot advertise.
Yes, we have to. For us, we have timelines, and we really work on that, on delivering on time, and we keep on updating the clients because some things just come up unexpectedly, but we make sure that we deliver on time, because that is how now we can create good relationships with customers, and they can see the speed and they can give us really good referrals.
Okay. So how often do you have meetings or sessions to discuss these customers and the project?
Okay. You see, for us, we interact with these customers almost every day, because once you are our customer, we open a file for you. So we are walking the journey with you, and through the project that we have, we walk through the journey all through. So for us, you will find like one customer, we will have to call them every day to give them updates and to talk about the project that they have. Even after now we are done with the project, we make sure to reach out and to know how they are. Now what was challenging is like now just saying like this, encouraging a customer to just ask them how they are. And you see, sometimes they will think you want to ask them for money if maybe they have not paid. So, but it was challenging to us. You know, sometimes we ought to act professional. So we want to have that professional relationship with the customer. But now it was challenging to just think like we need to call this customer and know how they are and know how they're doing. But we are doing our best on that now. We are really doing our best.
Okay. I still want you to probably, and we will speak more about it, to just really understand How many times do you sit as CK and Co advocates and say, okay, because you know, Liz, you're gonna be bigger next year than you are this year. So this year you may have 200 customers. At some point there'll be 2,000. So what is the forum that you have created to monitor and make sure that everybody has the same level of happiness? But I'll leave you with that question because Ken is going to talk about cadences. That is the frog that Faith has brought up. I wanted to hear from one more person, and then we can go into that to just talk about that frog. Even someone who resonates or has a question. Gerald and Brenda should also share, yes, as well, from Kinetics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I wanted to add on to the second frog that Faith mentioned. That is with regard to the roadmap.
Sorry, it's breaking. Gerald, it's breaking.
Most of the time sorry, can you hear me now? Can
Okay,
you hear
now
me?
it's a bit better. Yes.
All right. So saying regards to the roadmap, we usually adopt call it a methodology of project implementation. So in as much as we have, it gives a little more flexibility to be able to adapt incorporate clients' needs and the changing circumstances as we think we can. Because there's been an issue of who owns, because sometimes that particular agile methodology it's prone to delays. So you realize you're supposed to have delivered the modules in sprint one by such and such a time, but because you adopt the methodology, so you realize some of this sort of drag into beyond the project period. So then there's the question of because at that time there are resources that are being used and all that. So I think that is also a frog. And basically, I was just going through our reflection this morning, and I came across the story of things that look like they're urgent, but they're not too urgent to force a meeting, or maybe they don't look enough to justify panic as at some time, but you realize way later, you realize the project sheet was supposed to be delivered and resources have been spent. So as long as the client is paying, but that particular, it looks like there's probably little or maybe no value as at the time they are making the entire payment. So I would also appreciate if I get the views of others with regards to how do if I'm to own this particular frog and eat it. So maybe how would this be? And for that case, I don't know if Brenda can add anything to that.
You both have explained the roles that we have internally. It's also not just from our observation, but also discussions that we've had over time within the organization, especially on the roadmap and finishing things on time. But I'd say, I think what I'm more interested to find out is how can you pinpoint that this is the cause of the problem, or maybe this is the cause of what has made this thing a fraud, and maybe from that, how can you maybe get the solutions to know that you're eating this frog well? Yeah.
Thanks, Brenda and Gerald, for sharing. So we are going to obsess over these customers because it amounts to growth in the business. And the size of your business today is going to be 5 times bigger next year. That's why the ROAS are on this form. One magical tool is what we call the cadence. And I think Faith has brought that out in terms of how do we make it effective so that actually now these things stop happening and dropping off and breaking. And Gerald and Brenda have given us some more color. So Ken, just high level, and I know we'll go in depth, what would you say is the initial principles in terms of how to think about this so that you can track your customers? And both for people in retail like Tanj, manufacturing like Destra, in service like Sawari and CK & Co, and also even for the software developers.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think this thing called cadence,
Or
cadence, or whatever you're comfortable calling it, it's a very interesting word and very important. I suspect it comes from the music world. It's, a rhythm, a beat, a tempo, heartbeat, consistent, right? That's actually the idea. I want to start with what you must absolutely change. The thing that you must absolutely change is what I call ad hoc, almost in crisis, reactive conversations with customers. Like that's if that is your world today, like there's no pattern. That is the thing that you must absolutely stop. You need to go into a rhythm. And the rhythms, for rule of thumb, the rhythms are either daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. Daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So the first thing that you need to ask yourself is that what is the rhythm for your business? What is the rhythm for your business? That's the first decision you have to make. Is it a daily rhythm? Is it a weekly rhythm, monthly rhythm, or quarterly rhythm? That one actually is the first point to start to form a cadence. In Pitarina's story, that rhythm, anyone can guess what was that rhythm? In Pitarina's, in Safaricom's case, what was that rhythm?
Pauline from Tanj?
Anyone?
I think it was daily.
Yes.
Yeah, some guys are saying weekly, others are saying daily. Okay. I can understand the confusion.
Every Thursday, monthly.
Yes, I can understand the confusion, yeah, right? But let's break it down. Let's try to understand that rhythm. Number one, Pitarina was number 2 to the CEO. He was the most senior person. He's the guy who was responsible for all revenues of Safaricom. And now the company makes close to 300 billion shillings, right? He had more budget than most ministers in Kenya. In fact, at some point, he never used to meet ministers. So if the leader is going out on the road alone to see customers, in a large organization like that, think about the levels of the organization. There is a department heads that report to Peter. There's area managers that report to Peter. So if Peter is on the road for 3 days in a week, what do you think his team members are doing?
The ones who are on ground.
Peter will come to your route on Thursday. You're on the ground. What are you doing? Anyone, just one person.
I'm seeing so many smiles.
If you are the area manager, Your boss is going to come to your route on Thursday. So Monday when you go to work, what are you doing?
And your family knows you work at Safaricom.
How are you ensuring everything is in order? Every single day you are walking those kiosks, asking the same questions, isn't it?
You're even doing preps.
You're even doing preps. You're checking whether the painting is peeling off. So the way that those customers are being seen is actually daily. And also think about it. The way you think about your rhythm is to say, you know, if you're Safaricom, if let's say in a certain area there are no scratch cards and there are no SIM cards, there may be 100 customers, 200 customers, 300 customers, 400 customers that can't get service. So you can imagine today they can't get scratch cards, so they can't make calls. Tomorrow they can't get scratch cards, they can't make calls. The next day, and the next day, and the next day, what will happen? Those customers imagine that network is closed. So it's a daily cadence. So the rule of thumb for most retail businesses, Desra, Tanj, your rhythm is daily. So if you're in Tanj, a customer walks into your Modaiga shop. If every day you have 40 customers that walk into that shop, if something happened that day, so for instance, you're not paying attention, the one that opens the shop doesn't come to work, so the shop is not open. You have 40 customers that come in and the shop is closed. Today, they believe the business has shut down, they'll not come tomorrow. So how do you define a rhythm? You define the rhythm around how your service impacts customers. If your service impacts customers every day, then you must design a rhythm that talks about customers every day. So that when at the end of the week, when you're having a cadence with your co-founder or you're in a management meeting, you've had 4 or 5 days of listening to customers and solving customer issues. Because cadences is not about talking, right? Cadences is not, oh, how are you doing? Great, good to see you, good to meet you. Cadences are very disciplined processes of understanding the things that matter to customers and fixing them. Do you have SIM cards? Do you have scratch cards? Do you have posters? And the reason why Peter on Monday will have a discussion with the area manager is that if those things are not there, he changes the area manager or you get fired. Fix that problem. Because at every time there must be SIM cards, there must be scratch cards, there must be posters. That's how the business becomes big. So retail businesses daily.
And that includes Desra as well, isn't it?
Yes, that includes Desra. Kena's business is a weekly cadence. So what happens in a weekly cadence? So this particular program happens 8 to 10 every Friday. Kena, what happens before and what happens after the class? What cadences happen?
With a customer?
Yeah, in our business, our cadences are weekly. So what happens before and what happens after this call?
Yeah. So before this, there's prep for this, around 2 cadences, where we analyze your data and then we tailor it for the session. So those are 2. After this, there's a cadence every Saturday that then loops in your founder on what is happening in the week. And then in the week, we call them. So there's 2 cadences to prep for this, 2 cadences to loop back to the founder throughout the week.
Yeah. So that's a weekly cadence. You can see the work, preparing for the session, analyzing the session, who came, who didn't come, why didn't they come, who did homework, what homework, which one resonated, and so on. Every week. And then monthly and quarterly. So for when you have large projects, maybe there are cadences like Kinetics cadences. When you're running a project, cadences are weekly, or maybe sometimes every 2 weeks, or maybe monthly. And sometimes some businesses have different cadences, right? Like for us, there's a cadence with you guys, and then there's a cadence with the founders, right? Like you have to intentionally design that. The idea is that then so it becomes routine. And you remember we said cadences is same time, same pattern, same rhythm, same questions, same people coming into the meeting asking questions. That's how things don't get forgotten. So in a PANI cadence, so like yesterday we had a cadence preparing for today's call. In that cadence, everybody's on the team is on that cadence because they are the technology guys who are worrying about the platform. There's Kenna who's worrying about how the content flows and whether we are solving problems. There is myself who has homework for something to talk about. There is Koi. So everybody is on the call. So we are carrying each other, and we will do that consistently until the business, until Jesus Christ comes back. Because that's the purpose of business, is to take care of customers. So today there is 37 of us on the call. 1 year from today, there'll be 3,000 on the call. 2 years from today, there'll be 50,000 on the call. 5 years from today, there'll be 1 million on the call. But the cadence is the same. We will meet on Thursday, discuss how the 2 hour will go. The technology guys will figure out how do you gather feedback from 1,000 people, from 40 people, from 1,000, from 2,000. The lesson plans, the platform will be figured out how it serves 40 people to 1,000 in multiple languages and all of that. Because we will meet every Thursday. The team will meet before that Thursday because the partners of the business are there on Thursday, so it means the team has met before. After this call, we'll have a 30-minute debrief, then we will prepare again tomorrow for the next session, like that, even when the business has 1 million customers. So it's a rhythm. That rhythm is the thing that causes us to obsess about customers and customer issues and data and solving and problems and growing every single day as part of our life. That's what actually customer obsession is. So the cadence has to be designed. You have to design it, and then you have to live it, and you have to bring discipline to it. And then that cadences are not talk shops. You must get better every cadence. There must be some problems that you're solving, some things that you're changing, right? If it's customers that are not paying, if it's projects that are not completing on time, if it's customers that are not giving feedback. So customers are quiet. You send them an email, you try to call them, you can never reach your customers. That's not a good thing. So those problems are normal. So in the cadences, that's how those problems are solved consistently, every time, weekly, every 2 weeks, monthly, or whatever it is your cadence is. Let me pause there and then back to Koi.
So I want to hear from Team CPF, whom I've not heard from, and Uza Point as well. And then for everyone else, maybe you can just type in the chat box and tell us when you hear Ken speaking, what do you think should be your cadence? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? So just tell us the company name and say, what do you suspect your cadence should be? As I hear from CPF, either Doreen, Lynn, what are you hearing and how does it apply for you? Thank you, Faith. Destra Daily, CK and co-advocates, let's see, So someone from CPF, Tanj Daily,
Hello. For us, our cadence should be monthly for the internal customers and the external ones, so that you're able to reach them and gather enough feedback. For us, I think when we were discussing, we felt that our cadence should be monthly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. That's Lynn, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. Uza Point,
Ours should be daily. It is not should be, it is daily. We need to check up with them daily just to make sure that things are okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Even as we continue seeking, depends with the project you're handling for the client. Interesting. So maybe a bit more color into that. So how would you then think of approaching the cadences?
Hello. So I think I'll take that. Since we do, let's see, if we're handling something as quick as a company incorporation, and we're assuming if there's no challenges with the regulatory systems, that could take somewhere a week to 2 weeks. So you see the updates are also we're like, in 1 week we'll tell them this is what we've done. These are the forms that the forms we could get them even daily. And then we keep them updated on where each stage. So if you're at review, we tell them the application is on review. If we are at approval, the application is on approval. Any changes that come up in between, because the transaction is very short term, we can do the updates very within the cadence can be very short. That we can do every day, we can do weekly. You see, for the long-term projects that we're handling, whether it be conveyancing, that's a land matter, or a project, construction project, we can do monthly if we're depending on who we're acting for as well. And also we can do quarterly for the real estate projects if it's construction. If it's construction, we can say, let's check in and see whether they've gotten the necessary approvals. Let's check and see if anything is coming up on their side that needs our attention, whether it's, sometimes you find that they are quote unquote arguing with the neighboring, the people who own the neighboring plots of land. So how can we step in and assist in such instances? So like Liz answered, it really depends on the project that we're handling and how time sensitive it is. Yeah.
Okay. Ken, what are your thoughts for where projects vary in terms of time, scope? What would be a cadence? Because they say a cadence is like a heartbeat. Someone said you don't wake up and say, my heartbeat now. Like the whole organization moves a certain way. They know how it's supposed to happen when. And that's the thing the rowers need to create so they can go and infect the rest of the organization. So
I think that a business must form a singular rhythm that works for most of its customers. So let's say if you're a law firm, let's say I suspect a law firm's rhythm is probably weekly. So what does that mean? That there is a specific team that sort of meets for a few hours, one day of a week, and talks about customers and maybe what goes on in a customer cadence meeting. A customer cadence meeting is basically saying, look, okay, generally we know that our customers care about these 3 or 4 things. How many customers do we have today? How do we feel they are faring on those 3 to 4 things? That's what it is, actually. So if you're a law firm, you have many projects and so on. There's nothing that prevents you from then saying, okay, we have 20 ongoing customer matters. And in our customer matters, our customers care about status updates. Are the matters progressing? Are the draft documents, are they going? Are they high quality? And other things. So the weekly cadence is basically you sitting and saying, okay, these are the 20 customers that are ongoing. These 4 are going well, they are on track. These ones are not on track, we are struggling with these ones, and then saying, what's happening with the struggling? Oh, the advocate that was working on that thing has been unwell the last 2 weeks. Should we assign the matter to somebody else? Have we communicated to the customer that it's gonna be late? That's what a customer cadence is, like week in, week out, week in, week out. And then you solve some of those problems. Let's say it comes out, okay, this project, are we really actually gonna complete it on time? And you say, actually, kusema kweli, we will not finish it on time. Then you now sit and discuss and say, how are we going to correct that? But how are we going to communicate to the customer? That's a problem. It's a customer communication problem. Projects happen, things happen, life happens. But every week, the business sits and looks at all of its customers and goes through that. That's the idea.
Okay. All right. So, Faith, back to you. Hi.
Hi, Chris.
When you hear all the conversation about cadences and what that looks like, because these are the frogs, this is the big frog that is there, and which you know is a huge revenue opportunity. What are you hearing?
Okay. I think before I answer that, I'll throw a question to Ken. Expound more on the unreachable clients. Like you're reaching to them through emails, phone calls. They're not showing up. They're not speaking. They are not doing nothing. But the project is ongoing, and they are actually paying. So, is there any need for a customer journey in that case? Like they're actually doing everything that is supposed to be done, but they are not reachable. But when it comes to paying, they're actually committed to that. Okay, so what I'm hearing around all these cadences, it's a discipline. It's something that should be done with clear intent of what you want to get. Like the 3 questions PA asked, do you have a SIM card? Do we have an evidence of Safaricom, the flyers and everything? So our 3 questions actually revolved around that, which I think, having the conversations aligned and, structured. So when a client comes in, they know from this call, I'm going to solve this and this and this. And from this call, this is what we are going to talk about. So I think I've picked up 2 or 3 things that we actually will structure around the cadences. So actually not waiting, because most of the times when there's an escalation, we wait for the CEO to handle the escalation because perhaps we think it's beyond us. So maybe that's also something you can talk about, because when a client now answering also Jane, the tip to making the clients, give you 5 million and if not deliver, there's no tip. That's where now the relationship with the CEO and the client comes in. The only tip is us delivering. So maybe to you, Ken, also, like how do we, juggle around that? There's an escalation, yes, and now we need to involve very high level people. Do we actually go ahead and eat that frog? And because most of the times we sit back. Now, yes, we know there's an escalation, the project is lagging, but what do we actually do from then on? Should we sit down? Of course, we have escalated to our CEO. Should we wait for him to solve that and then we go ahead with the project? But around the cadences, I have picked 2 or 3 things we can actually incorporate in that. I think I've thrown in 3 questions to Ken that were revolving around my mind when you were talking about the cadences.
Yeah. I think the first thing that normally when you put a cadence together, in a business that delivers projects, which is a business I ran for long, the most important things in a project is on time, delivering on time and quality, right? So a cadence would say, okay, which projects are on time, which ones are not on time? And if you consistently have projects that are not on time, then the cadence tries to figure out why are our projects late, because a good business is a business that delivers all its projects on time. That's what you want. That's a standard you want to aspire for. So you're not solving for escalations or getting paid for late projects. That's a wrong problem to solve. The right problem to solve is to say, why are our projects late? We don't want we want to build a reputation for a business that always delivers on time. Think about you as a customer. If a brand has that promise, we will always keep our promise, we always deliver on time, you love that brand. So the customer cadence is about raising the quality at which you're serving the customer. So that's what you do in the cadence. Now, for businesses that have large customers, there is what I call, like when you're talking about how you touch customers. In Peter Arena's story, there's a design that picking a route at random and going to customers himself. There's a design to that behavior. In a business that serves other businesses like Kinetics or CK and Co-Advocates, there's what I call the formal channel of communicating with the customer and the informal. Those are part of the cadence. So for instance, we had banking customers. In banking customers, we had several customer touch points. There was a CEO, there was a C-level team, and there was a project team. So the project team, the cadence was weekly. They got their reports weekly. At some point, the CEO, we needed to do a quarterly update to the CEO. In between these weeklies, for each customer, let's say we were serving Standard Chartered, the account manager, somewhere in between those things, was supposed to kind of do those informal things, right? So one of the times, just pick a project manager and take them for lunch. Pick the IT person, just go out for lunch. And in that process, that's the equivalent of Peter Arena working the shops. Because on the weekly meetings, you go through the project. Okay, this is what the projects are, these are the tasks, and so on. In summarizing to the CEO every quarter, that's also a different flavor. But in between, there are these informal touch points where somebody says, hey, but you guys, I know you're doing very well on this side, but this particular one is very important for the CEO, and we are not feeling like you're solving. So you're getting this feedback, and this is going into the customer cadence, so you're improving how you're delivering. Remember, the cadence is not to just talk to customers, is to pick feedback on things that are important to improve the delivery. That's a goal of the cadence, is to have data and nuance and insights so you can improve the delivery. A weekly cadence means you're improving weekly. Daily cadence means you're improving daily. And monthly cadence means you're improving every month. Whichever way you look at it, the power of compounding works for you. You can imagine if you're a law firm, you're looking at your 20 customers, what is red, what is green, what is amber, how do we fix it? Are we communicating? Fixed communication, this is what we should do. Somebody should be having lunches. You're doing those things every week. So you're improving small improvements 54 times a year. You really become a very disciplined business.
And you become a machine, because anybody who joins knows
they just come into the cadence. Yeah.
So I want to now thank you very much to Team Kinetics, and well done. Here is the thing we've been doing. We have spent a lot of time mapping this journey. A lot of you went back and remapped, and well done to everybody who did a much better job in terms of walking in the shoes of your customers. And then thereafter, we identified some frogs. Now, the tool that you always have to use is cadences, and we're going to make sure that all of you have very high quality cadences by the time you're leaving this program. Those cadences allow you to, so you will always have frogs, that is a fact. Because your business now, you're solving for 20 customers, next week you're solving for 200, like that, because you're growing. The question is, how quickly do those frogs get swallowed and how quickly do you catch those things? Because like Ken said, the point is not to just talk and connect with each other and meet, it's to resolve. Once you identify those frogs in your cadences, which are high quality cadences, is then somebody must own the frog. Somebody must eat it and swallow it so that you come back to that same machine called the cadence, you check that you have resolved and you hold each other accountable. And then the machine runs very smoothly. Now, because you are rowers on this call, you have to be very good eaters of frogs. I don't even know if that's correct English, but you have to be very good at owning it, taking it and swallowing it. And I'm very conscious of time. And we said this session is called Eating the Frog. Now we've picked up a frog from this cadence. For Faith and her team, they've decided this is who comes into the cadence so that it becomes a high quality one. But there'll be something to be solved. So Kenna, how do we talk about now the person who owns it, the rower on this call, and swallowing that frog whole or in pieces?
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you, Koi. And I think the conversation on the cadences is the helpful start to that journey, because the cadence will tell you every week what the frogs of the day are. And whoever is in the cadence, one of you must pick a frog, as you said, and eat it, because that's how we are actually solving for the customer. So when we thought of this session, I think the way we thought it would be most helpful is to actually walk you through a journey of what does it take to eat a frog and eat it decisively to the point where it actually causes an impact in the business. And so we broke that into 7 steps. Now, these 7 steps, pay attention to them because they will be your reflection of the week. To see what frog can you identify and how do you map out a journey to actually eating it. So quickly to run through them. Step 1, identify the frog. That one is what you will do in your cadence, and that's why that cadence matters. How do you know it's a real frog? Why does it matter? Those are the conversations that allow you to identify a frog. But when you go to number 2, you have to understand why that frog exists. So is it a frog that exists because no one is, manning that area? No one is reaching out to customers. No one is asking them, will you do the support contracts, like in your case, Kinetics? Does the frog exist because maybe someone on the team is not pulling their weight? Does the frog exist because maybe the founder doesn't have, insight into something that's really a problem for the process that you're working? Maybe it's the way we are billing is really a problem, and maybe the founder doesn't know. So it just continues to fester as a frog. So I think just an understanding of why does that frog exist in the first place. The next step is, why are you the person to eat this frog? Of everyone in the team, why are you the person best placed to eat the frog? Then number 4, there's a lot of competence. Remember the trust equation that we drew in the beginning? Now we're saying, okay, can you do your homework about what does it really take to eat that frog? What is the basics of this problem that we must solve? If it's that, what must I know and be able to do to be able to eat that frog? Number 5, you then need to have a courageous conversation with your founder, leader in your team to actually ask for ownership of the frogs, because frogs are given. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to figure out billing and this part of distribution, the founder says, okay, you go and figure it out. So they have to give that. Number 6, communicating relentlessly. So as I'm executing, I'm not just doing it in a silo. I'm actually updating the team and the founder on progress and any problems along the way. And finally, which is the law of eating frogs, you deliver it. You don't pass the frog, you eat it, and you eat it fully, on time, in full, on spec, as much as possible. So those 7 steps are really just the journey that everyone who's ever eaten a frog travels. We hope they can be guiding even as you go into now, discussing with your team which frogs need to be eaten. I think the best way to see this in action is actually to see a memorable story that plays what this journey looks like. And I'll ask Ken to just share a bit of this eating the frog concept. We've given it nice words now, but it's really something that's been alive, all through, even in building teams. Even today, during our interviews, we ask someone, what's the frog you're coming on board to eat? So how can we think about that journey?
Yeah, Kenna, you want me to now tell the story?
Yes.
To tell a story.
A story.
Yes, for eating the frog. These words, eating the frog, it's quite a fancy concept. I personally met those words maybe just a year ago, but my story actually starts much earlier. I think it was way back in I think 1996, 97. I had just dropped out of university. Very painful for my parents and my relatives because I was in pharmacy school in University of Nairobi, Chiromo, which is generally was supposed to be prestigious. And I decided that I was going to have a career in computers. So leaving university was not a popular decision. So as a person, I had a lot of conversations with myself about, this Nairobi, I just come to Nairobi a year or two before. Nairobi was very intimidating. I hardly knew anyone in Nairobi. I was struggling to master the English that was spoken in Nairobi and all of that. So I ended up getting an interview. So I had started to study computers in Strathmore. I loved it. I enjoyed it. And then I got an interview at an internet service provider. And but by that time, I'd made a decision that the way that I was going to make a difference is to work harder, to know more, and to be more resilient than anybody else. I couldn't see any other competitive advantage I would have. So in my mind, there was this concept of like, okay, for me to make a difference, I have to look for hard things. So I went for this interview. I'd been set up for this internet service provider. And in the interview, as I did the interview, the manager was interviewing me was kind of impressed by the knowledge I had. And so eventually we did the interview, and then it came to sort of salary negotiations, and he asked me, so how much are you looking to earn? At that time, I told him like 30K a month. And he looked at me and he laughed and he just said, but you don't have any experience. But he said it in such a gentle way. But he ended up telling me, 30K, I think, frankly, you know a lot for sure, but you're not tested. You haven't done anything. So he said, look, you come in, we'll pay you nothing. You figure it, then, make your name, and then we'll talk. As I drove, and somewhere in that conversation, in the interview, I was very curious about many things. But anyway, as I went, I was a little bit confused. I know a lot. We had a very good, interesting discussion. He said I was smart. And then he says I work for nothing. Like, what does that guy think? I'm a fool or what, right? But anyway, as I drove, as I was in the bus, I realized that actually, I had nothing to lose. It's not like I had another job. So by the next day, my mindset had changed. And when I remembered, I remembered actually having a conversation. In that conversation, it came out that there was a customer, there was a project that the business hadn't delivered. And the customer was so unhappy, he was suing the business. He had written them a demand not to sue. Hey, so I said, okay, so that customer. So I went back the next day because the manager told me, you go and think about whether you work for free and so on. So I went back and I said, you know what? It was called Tony. I said, Tony, okay. I mean, I'm not liking this free thing, but I think you make a fair point. I want to talk about this customer that is unhappy. And he told me, he's like, why are you most interested? I say, I'd like to start with that project. So he looked at me almost laughing. And then he's like, no, Ken, forget about that project. There was a consultant. This guy was an MIT master's. He couldn't do that project. I don't think it can be done in Kenya. Now he got my interest. Remember, in my mind, I knew that I'll make my career, I'll make my mark on things that are hard to do. So I told him, I want to start with that project. I said, if you don't think I can do it and it's, the project is gone bad anyway, it means you have nothing to lose. So anyway, he reluctantly gave me access to that project. And when I started to look at that project, I just said, what have I gotten myself into? I just couldn't figure out what it is that needed to be done. But it was a frog. I didn't have those words at that time, but then I said, but what would happen if I actually make progress with this project? It would completely change my positioning in the business. And so I ended up, and it was a large project. It was a website, an interactive website. Shadia and Edwin and Femi will know this, and the Kinetics guy, with a database. In those days, at that time, it was like a special thing. So for 3 months, I hardly slept. I was always in the office. I'd go home and change, and I was in the internet, so just searching, reaching, figuring out, and all of that. And in generally about 3 months, we managed to begin to show something to the customer. The customer just completely calmed down and came back to the business, stopped suing, started paying, and all of that. It was hellish 3 months. But eating that frog and working on that project and eventually delivered, I didn't deliver in the time that I said, but it got done like in 5 months. By the time that I did that project, by this time, the business had decided, hey, this guy, I think is valuable. And so after 3 months in, they called me and they say, we want to put you on 10K. I didn't go back. They called me and they realized that, okay, this guy had some value. But that particular project, eventually we delivered and it went to market. And a year later, so about 6 months in, I got poached by a competitor for 60,000 bob a month, right? And I worked for that job for another 1 year. That's how my career, in 1.5 years, that was the only career where I worked for someone. I came in turn, no pay for 3 months, was on 10K for another 3 months, moved from 10K to a competitor for 60K, was there for 1 year, and I left and to become an entrepreneur in the journey that I started a company called 3 Mice and then eventually Cellulant. But actually, this thing of eating frogs became my personal brand. So even the companies we built, we were always known to look for very challenging projects at impossible times, projects that nobody else would dare do, difficult at high speed and high cost. That became the brand of the work we did. And even Cellulant today, that is what sets it apart. We are known to eat frogs, really large frogs. So at the beginning, I think that time, that project was a 250,000 or 300,000 shilling project for the customer, for the company. As I left Cellulant, The largest frog we ate was a $10 million project for a customer. We did it in 90 days, a project that takes 3 years to do. So this eating frog, for as long as a frog is customer facing, what happened in that particular case? You got noticed, right? Because every business cares about its customers. Every boss, every founder, every MD cares about customers. So you're never ever gonna go wrong by choosing to eat a frog that is somewhere in the customer journey. So that's the first thing. When you identify a frog, define it clearly. Make sure it impacts customers, because if it impacts a customer, it impacts a business, impacts a founder. It's a good career move. Diagnose it. Try to understand what exactly is breaking. And when I listen to this discussion, there are very many frogs. From customers who don't pick calls that are not paying, to
even internal customers
yes,
who are not
yeah,
responding
to internal customers who don't know your value. All those are frogs. So identify them. Take time to understand them by asking questions. What happened? Why do you have that attitude? Why do you not pay? Like, what is the thing? Like, we are friends. Like, how can I help you? You know, that you have to identify that thing and define that thing very well. Why you? Why should you be the one that takes the risk? You know, frankly, there's nothing to lose. I always ask myself, you know, what would have Tony done to me if I had failed in that project? He had nothing to lose either, because the project was failed anyway. But I would have made an impression. It's like, this guy steps up and takes responsibility. So it's very scary, but actually, in actual fact, you as a leader have nothing to lose. So, you know, today, if you go to like the support contract case in Kinetics, only 1 out of 5 customers sign support contracts. If you go as a team to the CEO and just say, look, we want to increase the number of support contracts from 1 to 3 in 5, and this is how we want to do it. The CEO will say, fine, I think it's very difficult, it's not possible, but fine, be my guest. You have nothing to lose. You get noticed. Because you get noticed as somebody that is an impact driver for customers in the business. Once you pick a frog, of course, it has to be you owe it to yourself that is a successful story. So even though we promised that it was going to be delivered, like, you know, when I took that job, the expectation was like it's like a 3-month project. We ended up delivering it in 5 months. But even though the project was not finished, the customer could see in 3 months that, wow, it is the first time when I listen to the effort, the progress, and so on, I have hope actually this thing will be delivered. The customer temperature changed. And because the customer temperature changed, and because this threat of the business being sued, for the support contracts, the threat of cash flow, all those things, they overhang in the business. The moment people can touch and feel that there's some effort in solving that problem, the team gets a lot of goodwill. But then also it inspires you to just work harder to find a solution from that problem, because most of those solutions can be solved. Yes, of course, it requires courage from you. It's always say you know, by the way, I was always terrified every time we stepped up to eat a frog. I was terrified in those early days, and even the $10 million I was completely terrified. But you know what they say, you do it afraid, right? Courage is not absence of fear. It's actually, you just do it afraid. Just step up, find the most pressing problems. Like, you know, we have this, out of 4,000 customers, we have these 300 that don't pay us. As a team, we are going to solve that problem. Do it afraid and go out and find out and fix and find a solution for that. And that solution, and if you're a leader and you're a rower and you're a person that in weekly customer cadences, in monthly customer cadences, management team meetings, you're saying, okay, there are these 300 customers that don't pay. We have a project to try and address them. These are programs we are making, and you're always seen to be committed to problem solving, to leading customers, and so on. I can guarantee you, my career trajectory was never the same. It took off completely. When I took on the project for customers, when I came in, we had a bunch of interns who had generally been there a few months before. For the 3 months I was earning nothing, those guys were on 10K. I used to see them with new sneakers and all of that. But 6 months in, I moved to a job that paid me 60K. I left them at 10K, right? Like the trajectory was just, so was the risk worth it? Was it worth that commitment? Absolutely. So once you take that frog, commit to it, make progress. And that's what this fancy word, which I now really like. I like its imagery. I mean, of course, literally, I mean, the idea of eating a frog, some of you could be vegetarians, all of that. And most of you for sure are Kenyans. You're not French. The French eat frogs, us we don't.
Okay. Kenna, back to you.
Thanks for that, Ken. I think it's really painted very clearly what eating the frog looks like. I want to hear in the room, because there's some people who had already identified what a possible frog could be for them. So it would be good to hear what's resonating from what Ken has said in light of your frog. From what Ken has shared. I'd actually like to hear from the Tendepe team. We've not had you too much today. Brian from Tendepe, how are you feeling about your frog? Or have you identified yours?
Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I think we had a session, a very interactive session with the founder this week. And from that meeting, we were able to clearly identify and pinpoint the frogs for each of the rowers in our team. So for me personally, it was about tech service delivery. So initially, there's some bit of challenges going on, but we are ready to step up on it and changing the mindset from, for example, let's say, how you get up and say, I fixed this problem, so you should have to change it to, it will not occur again. So those kind of talks that you had, changing the mindset of just solving a problem, you make sure it doesn't happen again, be proactive in it, and making sure the customers feel better, improving the customer experience, and a repetitive form of it. Yeah.
Okay, Brian. Just a follow-up question. What will change once that frog has been eaten in a very tangible way for someone who is not in your business? What would you tell them? This has changed in this long when we've eaten this frog.
Okay, I can say a better service, better customer experience provided to their customers. This when the customers get happy, everything, maybe funding, they do a transaction seamless from the end-to-end seamless transactions. It will be better for them, and they get the customers they get retention. The retention rate goes high, and this in turn leads to referrals from the customers.
Okay. I'll challenge you to have very specific things that you're chasing, even with that even with those metrics that you're chasing, if it's retention, today it's from what, it will grow to what, so that you have a very, concrete way to say that actually I've eaten the frog. And I know through the reflection will help you just get to that point of clarity with that. Thank you for sharing that. I want to hear from Beverly Sawari. What's resonating with your frog?
So, morning everyone. Sorry, I've been a bit distracted today. It's funny. I woke up and I was solving customer issues, and then I got late for the meeting. Anyway, moving on. We actually have a few frogs that I've been able to identify. The customer journey has been super duper helpful. There are things that I thought were quite clear and obvious what the core issue is, and I'm realizing it may be a bit deeper or more complex than I've given it credit for. I think for me, I'm really looking forward to the coursework this week because I want to narrow down on what specifically I can do with the skills that I have, with what is accessible to me. I really enjoyed Ken's story because I personally am not someone who gravitates towards the hardest obstacle. I would like to do a step-by-step process of the softer one and then getting to the harder things. So I've gotten a lot of courage from that story. It was nice to hear. I'm going to be honest and say I don't know for sure what frog I want to challenge. I want to take on this week and through this process and through this journey. We also did have a very interactive session with our founder this week. That's also brightened me up. Honestly, I thought I was coming in to say that my pulses are 5 today because I'm ready to go. But I think I've gotten bogged down by the weather and then this customer issue. So anyway, my main point is I don't know for certain, but I'm gonna know. And I think I've gotten a lot of tips from even just hearing everyone's processes this week. Thank you, Faith. Your articulation of your story and your team journey was really inspiring as well. And I think I'll leave it at that unless, Kenna, you have a specific question for me.
No, I think that's clear. Yes, the story is a good guide, and I hope even going through the steps allows you to find what that thing is. It does need a bit of reflection, so naturally you walk that journey, and we hope that the questions we'll ask you to answer, we'll just bring it together. Okay. Is there anyone who in the room feels like I'm not quite sure I understand this frog concept yet? There's something that's unclear. I need a bit more explanation on what the frog that I'm going to eat is. Anyone in the room? The frog concept is clear. We know what we are going to be tackling coming into the week. You can just put thumbs up. All right. Okay. Great. So I'm conscious we are coming up to the top of the hour. And I think through the session, we've really been able to unpack a lot of very critical concepts. First, with the customer cadence and leveling up the quality of it. And even now, individually identifying what your frogs are. So through this next week, what we're going to ask from you is to walk that individual reflection. I know you've done a lot of group work together with your team. This week, we want you to individually reflect, to find what that frog that you can really eat is. Then to go and have that conversation with your founder. They'll help you clarify and really quantify what the impact of this frog is. That's the only task of the week. And so, as usual, as we close out the session, I want us to I've been forgetting to do the exit pulse in the session, but I think it would be helpful to put up the link so that we can get your insights even before you leave, before we can allow you to go on with your day. So I'll ask the team to put up the link to the exit pulse, and that will be your ticket out.
Kenna, I
Yes.
think we'd wanted to send that afterwards because there are a few changes we're making because of the needs.
Okay.
Wait. Yeah.
All
So we'll
right. No
just
worries.
share that immediately afterwards on WhatsApp.
Okay. All right. No worries. Yeah, please look out for that and fill it out as soon as possible, so that we also release you for the week. But I think we can pause there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next week will be a month of doing these sessions. So we're really glad also to see all the growth along your journey. So have a lovely rest of your Friday and weekend. See you next week. Bye.